Welcome back, everyone, to another deep dive. So you've sent us tons of notes and articles
Oh, yeah.
about genetic and metabolic disorders.
Lots to unpack.
And you're looking for, like, the main takeaways, right? The stuff that really
So I
matter.
need to know.
That's where we come in. We're diving into some fascinating conditions.
Yeah, and some heartbreaking ones, too.
From a syndrome that mainly hits females to disorders that, like, mess with how your body handles the most basic building blocks.
Amino acids, things like that.
It's wild, right? Like, one of these can actually make your pee smell like maple syrup.
Really?
Stick around. We'll get to that one, I promise. But first, let's start with Rhett Syndrome. This one mainly affects females.
Yeah, and the male variant, often fatal.
Why is that? Why is it so gender specific?
Well, think about it this way. It all comes down to a mutation in the MECP2 gene,
Okay.
which lives on the X chromosome. And females, right, they've got two X chromosomes.
Right.
Well, guys, we've got one X and one Y. So if a girl has this mutation on one X, the other one can kind of pick up the slack sometimes.
Gotcha.
But males, with just the one X, no backup.
Oh, that makes sense. So it's like for women, they have a spare tire, but men are like driving on a flat.
Exactly.
So this mutation, then, it leads to developmental issues, right?
Absolutely. Infants with Rett syndrome, they might seem okay at first, hit all those early milestones.
Yeah.
But then around age 2,
Oh, no.
they start regressing, losing motor skills, language abilities. And often they develop this distinct hand-wringing motion.
Hand-wringing. That breaks my heart. Is that like a nervous tic or is it something more?
We're not totally sure, but it's thought to be a way for them to, like, self-soothe or stimulate their senses as their brains are changing. It's
Wow.
one of the hallmarks of this really complex condition.
It really puts into perspective just how fragile, I guess, brain development is.
Yeah.
And how one gene can just like totally change things. Speaking of changing things, what about that maple syrup smell?
You're talking about maple syrup urine disease.
That's the one.
It's as weird as it sounds. That smell, it actually tells us what's going wrong, like deep down metabolically.
Okay, how so?
The body can't break down certain amino acids. Leucine, isoleucine, and valine.
3 of them.
They're essential for making proteins, and if they build up, serious neurological problems.
So it's like a traffic jam
Exactly.
in your metabolism.
Yeah.
And the amino acids can't get where they need to be.
And that's why we need to catch it early. It can often be managed, thankfully,
How so?
with a super strict diet, like really limiting those amino acids,
Oh, wow.
and sometimes with thiamine supplements.
So early diagnosis is key. Makes sense. Now, mitochondrial diseases. This is something I find so fascinating.
Yeah, mitochondria are cool.
What makes them so different from what we've talked about so far?
Well, first, they're the powerhouses of our cells, right?
Yeah.
They make all the energy our bodies need to function. But here's the kicker. The genes that control them, they only come from your mom. Yeah. So if a mom carries a mutation in her mitochondrial DNA, all her kids will inherit it. Dads, don't transmit it.
So it's like this secret lineage passed down through like the moms in a family.
You could say that.
I'm really curious about this. Like mom-only inheritance? What does it mean?
It means these conditions can affect, like, multiple generations. And they can look very different from person to person.
That's so interesting. How do doctors even, like, know what to look for then?
One thing is something called ragged red muscle fibers. They can see it under a microscope.
Ragged red muscle fibers. That sounds intense. Why do they look like that?
It's because the mitochondria in the muscle cells, they're not working right, not making enough energy.
Yeah.
So you get this buildup of abnormal mitochondria,
Right.
which makes them look, well, ragged and red.
Wow.
And it's not just muscles. We can see problems with the brain,
Like what?
encephalopathy, seizures, which is epilepsy,
Oh, wow.
even too much lactic acid in the blood, lactic acidosis. It all depends on which tissues are being affected by this energy shortage.
So one tiny problem in these powerhouses can, like, mess up the whole body.
Pretty much, yeah.
Now, let's talk about familial dyslipidemias. This is a group of disorders, and they can really hurt your heart.
Oh, you bet. These are all about lipid levels in the blood being messed up.
Lipids.
Fats, like cholesterol and triglycerides.
Okay.
When these are off, higher risk of heart problems.
There are different types of familial dyslipidemias, though, right?
4 main types. Each one has a different deficiency in how the body processes those fats. It's like your body has tools for this job.
Okay.
And with each type, one tool's missing or broken.
Could you break those types down for us?
Sure. Type 1, or hyperchylomicronemia. It's caused by a deficiency in either lipoprotein lipase or ApoCTI. They're crucial for breaking down fats. Without them, you get high levels of chylomicrons.
So what? What happens then?
Well, that can lead to inflammation of the pancreas. We call that pancreatitis. And you get these eruptive xanthomas. They're really itchy.
Hold on, xanthomas. What are those?
They're fatty deposits under the skin. They can look like bumps or lesions, often near tendons, joints. It's a visible sign of lipid problems.
So high chylomicrons, pancreatitis, and xanthomas. Got it.
Yeah.
What about type 2?
Type 2, it's the most common one. This one comes from problems with LDL receptors. Those are responsible for getting rid of LDL cholesterol from your blood.
LDLs are the bad one.
You got it. And without enough working receptors, LDL cholesterol builds up, which contributes to atherosclerosis.
That's the hardening of the arteries, right?
Exactly. Can lead to early heart attacks. And those tendon xanthomas we talked about.
Okay, type 3.
Type 3 is called dysmetallolipoproteinemia. It's from an ApoE deficiency. ApoE helps clear out certain particles that carry fats in your blood. No ApoE. You get a buildup of those particles.
What does that cause?
Well, one thing is palmar xanthomas, fatty deposits on your palms.
Oh, yuck.
And again, more atherosclerosis.
So different deficiencies, but they all lead to issues with fat processing and higher risk of heart disease. What about type 4 then?
Type 4, hypertriglyceridemia. This one's all about too much VLDL production in the liver.
VLDL.
It carries triglycerides in the blood.
Triglycerides, another type of fat.
Right. And when VLDL levels are too high, risk of pancreatitis goes up.
Got it. So whether it's cholesterol or triglycerides, any lipid problems, you've got to take them seriously. Last stop on our deep dive today, cystinuria. This one sounds kind of mysterious.
It's all about how your kidneys filter stuff. Imagine tiny filters in your kidneys.
Okay, I'm imagining.
They reabsorb nutrients back into your blood and filter waste into your pee.
Makes sense.
But with cystinuria, that filter's got a leak. It can't reabsorb some amino acids.
Which ones?
Cysteine, ornithine, lysine, and arginine. Think choline.
Choline, I like it. Easy to remember. What happens when those amino acids don't get filtered?
They end up in the urine. And cysteine, it doesn't like to dissolve. It crystallizes and forms kidney stones.
So these kidney stones, they're special, different from regular ones.
They have this unique hexagonal shape, makes them easier to spot.
Hexagonal kidney stones. That's crazy. Is there anything they can do to treat it?
There are a couple of things. Chelating agents like penicillamine bind to cysteine to make it more soluble. That can help prevent stones from forming.
So it's like helping the cysteine dissolve.
Yeah, and making the urine more alkaline can help dissolve cysteine too. Often that's done with potassium citrate.
So we're basically helping that cysteine stay dissolved and get flushed out. That's pretty clever. Well, we've learned so much today, from Rhett syndrome and that MECP2 gene to managing maple syrup urine disease through diet. It's unbelievable how these little disruptions can affect people so much.
I know, right? And by understanding what causes these conditions, we can get better at diagnosing them, treating them.
Maybe even preventing them.
Exactly.
It makes you realize that all the systems in our bodies are connected and that balance is really fragile.
For sure.
After learning about all these conditions and how they mess with our metabolism, what do you think? What other pathways could be affected like this? It's something to think about. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
Thanks, everyone.
See you next time.